My name is Steph Hartman. I'm 29 years old. And at the inheritance sharing, my stepsister stood up, claimed everything my parents owned, and told me I was getting absolutely nothing. Everyone cheered, but I just smiled and whispered, "Dad, don't you know?" He froze like his heart fell out of his chest. My stepsister screamed, "No! What?" Before I tell you what he didn't know, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight. You want to know how I got here? You want to know why that moment felt like every cell in my body was on fire with vindication and rage? Then let me take you back. Let me show you what it feels like to be invisible in your own home. Let me show you what it's like to be forgotten, while someone else takes everything that should have been yours. I wasn't always this person. I wasn't always someone who could stand in a room full of people who hated me and smile while they tried to destroy me. No, I used to be soft. I used to believe that if I was just good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, someone would finally see me. Someone would finally care. My mom died when I was 7 years old. 7. Do you know what it's like to lose the only person who ever truly loved you when you're that young? When you still believe the world is supposed to be safe? I remember her funeral like it was yesterday. I remember standing there in this scratchy black dress that was too big for me, holding my dad's hand, thinking he would protect me, thinking he would keep me safe, thinking that even though mom was gone, at least I still had him. I was so stupid. Within 2 years, he remarried. Her name was Diane. Diane with her perfectly styled blonde hair and her fake smile, and her daughter Jessica, who was exactly my age. Jessica, who would become the golden princess of our household, while I became nothing. Less than nothing. I became the ghost in the corner, the afterthought, the stepdaughter who was tolerated but never, ever loved. From the moment Diane moved into our house, my mother's house, everything changed. Suddenly, there were new rules. Suddenly, I wasn't allowed to keep my mom's photos on the mantle because they made Diane uncomfortable. Suddenly, my mom's favorite chair was donated to Goodwill. Suddenly, every trace of her was erased like she never existed, and I was supposed to just smile and accept it. I was supposed to just be grateful that Diane was willing to take me on, as she used to say. Like I was a burden, like I was some charity case instead of my father's actual daughter. And my dad? My dad just let it happen. He became this passive, hollow version of himself. Every decision was run past Diane. Every rule came from her. Jessica wanted a new iPhone? Jessica got a new iPhone. I needed school supplies? I got Jessica's hand-me-downs. Jessica wanted to take dance lessons? Dad paid for private lessons with the best instructor in town. I wanted to join the school choir? Maybe next year, Steph. Money's tight. Money was never tight for Jessica. Let me paint you a picture of what my childhood looked like after Diane entered our lives. Let me show you exactly how the hierarchy worked in that house. Diane and Jessica were at the top, the sun and the moon, the center of our entire universe. My dad orbited around them, desperate to keep them happy. And me? I was the distant star no one bothered to look at. I was there, technically, but no one cared. Jessica got new clothes for every season. I got whatever she outgrew or got tired of. Jessica got a new iPhone every year. I got her old one with the cracked screen after she upgraded. Jessica had birthday parties with 50 kids, and a bouncer and a DJ. I got a grocery store cake that Diane would pick up on her way home from work, if she remembered at all. Some years she didn't remember. Some years my birthday came and went, with nothing but a card from my dad with $20 in it, and a note that said, "Sorry, kiddo." Sorry. That word defined my entire childhood. Sorry we can't make it to your school concert, Steph. Jessica has a dance recital the same night. Sorry we can't afford to send you on the class trip, Steph. Jessica needs a new laptop for school. Sorry you feel left out, Steph. But this is just how blended families work. Except it wasn't a blended family, it was their family, and I was just living in it. I remember one Christmas when I was 15. Jessica opened present after present. Designer clothes, expensive jewelry, the latest electronics. I watched her tear through wrapping paper like a tornado, barely looking at what she was getting before moving on to the next box. And then it was my turn. I had 3 presents. 3. One was a clearance rack sweater from Target that was 2 sizes too big. One was a used book from the thrift store. And one was a Starbucks gift card with $15 on it. I remember Diane smiling at me, waiting for me to say thank you. I remember the look on her face, like she was so proud of herself for even remembering to get me something. And I remember thinking, this is what I'm worth to them. $15 at Starbucks. But I smiled. I always smiled. I thanked them. I pretended like it didn't feel like a knife in my chest every single time they showed me exactly where I ranked in that family. Because what else was I supposed to do? Everyone just assumed Jessica would inherit everything someday. Everyone. Including me. It was just understood. Jessica was the favorite. Jessica was the one who mattered. When my dad talked about the future, he talked about Jessica. When he talked about his legacy, he talked about Jessica. I wasn't even part of the conversation, so I learned to make myself smaller. I learned to need less, ask for less, expect less. I learned that the only way to survive in that house was to be invisible. And I became very, very good at being invisible. I left home the day after my 22nd birthday. I had been saving every dollar I could scrape together from waitressing jobs and tutoring gigs since I was 16. I had exactly $3,000 to my name, a beat-up Honda Civic that barely ran, and a burning desire to get as far away from that house as humanly possible. I moved to Atlanta. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just packed my car in the middle of the night and drove. Diane probably didn't even notice I was gone for 3 days. My dad called me once, 2 weeks later, asking if I was okay. I told him I was fine. He said, "Okay, good." And that was it. That was the extent of his concern for his only biological child. Atlanta saved me. I got a job working as an assistant property manager for a small real estate company. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't well paid, but it was mine. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't living in someone else's shadow. I worked my way up. I took online classes in finance and real estate law. I learned about deeds and trusts and ownership and property rights. I learned that paper, legal paper, means everything. Words can lie, promises can break. But a notarized document? That's truth. That's power. I built a life for myself, a small life, maybe, a quiet life. But it was mine. I had my own apartment. I had friends who actually liked me. I had a boss who valued my work. For the first time since my mom died, I felt like I could breathe. But there was one person I stayed in contact with. One person who never forgot about me. One person who loved me unconditionally from the day I was born until the day she died. Grandma Evelyn, my dad's mother, my savior. Grandma Evelyn never liked Diane. She was polite, of course, because that's who Grandma was. But I could see it in her eyes every time we had family dinners at her house. She saw exactly what was happening. She saw how I was being erased. She saw how my dad had abandoned me for his new family. And she hated it. She called me every week after I moved to Atlanta. Every single week. We would talk for hours. She wanted to know everything about my life. She celebrated every small victory with me like it was the greatest accomplishment in the world. When I got promoted to property manager, she sent me flowers. When I signed my first lease on my own apartment, she sent me a care package with kitchen supplies and a note that said, "I'm so proud of the woman you've become." She was the only one. And then, one Saturday afternoon, about 3 years ago, she called me and asked me to come visit her in Florida. Not for a holiday, not for a special occasion. She just said, "Steph, I need to see you. It's important." I drove down that weekend. When I got to her house, she was waiting for me on the porch with this look on her face I'd never seen before. It was determined, it was angry, it was fierce. She brought me inside, sat me down at her kitchen table, and opened a file box I'd never seen before. And she said, "Steph, I need to show you something, and I need you to promise me you won't tell anyone until the time is right." What she showed me changed everything. Grandma Evelyn owned 8 rental properties in Florida. Beautiful houses, all of them. She had bought them over the course of 30 years, fixed them up, and rented them out. They generated solid income, good income, reliable income. And when she got older, she had asked my dad to help her manage them, to collect the rent, to handle maintenance, to keep the books. Big mistake. She showed me the books, years and years of financial records, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Rent payments that didn't match the deposits, invoices for maintenance work that was never done, thousands and thousands of dollars just missing. And when she started asking questions, my dad gave her vague answers. He told her not to worry about it. He told her he had it under control. He told her to trust him, but Grandma Evelyn wasn't stupid. She dug deeper, and she found out that Diane and Jessica had been siphoning money from those properties for years. Fake maintenance fees, inflated repair costs, rent money that went straight into their personal accounts. They were stealing from her, and my dad either didn't know or didn't care. Grandma looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "I trusted your father, Steph. I wanted to believe he would do the right thing, but he let them destroy everything. He's weak, and they're thieves. And I won't let them take what I built. I won't let them take what should be yours." And then she told me her plan. She had already contacted a lawyer. She had already drawn up a revocable living trust. And she was going to transfer all 8 properties to me, not to my dad, not to Diane, not to Jessica, to me. The granddaughter they all forgot about. The one they treated like garbage. The one they never expected to fight back. We spent that entire weekend going over every document, every deed, every piece of paper. She signed them in front of a notary. I signed them. It was legal, it was binding, it was done. And she made me promise her something. She said, "Steph, you cannot tell anyone about this. Not yet. Let them think they're going to get everything. Let them celebrate. Let them plan. And then, when they try to take what's mine, you show them these papers. You show them that they have no power. You show them that loyalty means something. You show them that you don't forget the people who forget you." I promised her, I swore to her, and I kept that promise even when it nearly killed me to stay silent. Grandma Evelyn passed away 8 months later, and the vultures started circling immediately. 2 days after Grandma's funeral, my dad called me. Not to see how I was doing, not to comfort me. He called me to tell me there was going to be a family meeting to discuss Grandma's estate. He said it was important that I attend. He said we needed to settle things quickly and fairly. I knew what that meant. It meant they had already decided who was getting what, and I was getting nothing. I drove down to Florida for the meeting. Diane and Jessica were already at Grandma's house when I arrived, going through her things like carrion birds picking at a carcass. Jessica was wearing one of Grandma's necklaces. Wearing it, like she had any right, like Grandma would have ever wanted her to have it. I wanted to rip it off her neck. But I didn't. I smiled. I stayed quiet. I waited. My dad sat me down and slid a piece of paper across the table. He said, "Steph, this is just a formality. We need you to sign this waiver stating that you're not making any claim to the rental properties. Your grandmother wanted Jessica to have them. It's what she wanted." Liar. He looked me right in the eyes and lied to my face. And Diane sat there nodding, looking so sympathetic, like this was hard for her too, like she wasn't orchestrating the whole thing. And Jessica? Jessica just smirked at me. She didn't even pretend to care. She knew she was getting everything, and she loved watching me squirm. I looked at that paper for a long time. And then I looked at my dad and said, "No." The room went silent. Diane's face went white. Jessica stopped smirking. My dad said, "What do you mean, no?" I said, "I mean no. I'm not signing anything. If Grandma wanted Jessica to have those properties, she would have put it in writing. So show me the will, show me the paperwork, show me proof." Diane tried to guilt me. She said, "Steph, this is so selfish. Jessica stayed here. Jessica helped take care of your grandmother. Jessica earned this. What did you do? You abandoned this family." Abandoned. That word. Like I was the one who left. Like I was the one who chose to be forgotten. But I didn't take the bait. I just said, "Show me the paperwork." They couldn't, because it didn't exist, because Grandma never left those properties to Jessica. She left them to me. But I didn't tell them that, not yet. I just refused to sign their fake waiver and left. And I let them think I was just being difficult. I let them think I was bitter and petty and jealous, and they decided to throw a party to celebrate Jessica's inheritance anyway. 3 weeks later, I got an invitation in the mail, printed on fancy cardstock with gold lettering. It said, "You are invited to celebrate Jessica Hartman's new venture as a Florida property owner. Join us for an evening of champagne and congratulations." They were throwing Jessica a party to celebrate her inheriting properties that weren't hers, properties she had stolen. And they invited me. They actually invited me. I almost didn't go. I almost just let them have their little celebration and dealt with the legal issues later. But then I thought about Grandma Evelyn. I thought about her sitting at that kitchen table, signing those deeds with shaking hands, telling me to wait for the right moment. And I realized this was the right moment. This was exactly what she wanted. She wanted them to celebrate. She wanted them to feel like they had won, so that when I took it all away, it would hurt even more. So I went. I wore a simple black dress. I brought a small black document case with me. And I walked into that party like I was walking into battle. The house was decorated like Jessica was a celebrity. There were banners that said, "Congratulations, Jessica." There were photos of the rental properties blown up and mounted on poster boards. There was a slideshow playing on a loop, showing Jessica posing in front of each house like she owned them, which legally she didn't. But no one there knew that. Everyone stared at me when I walked in. I could feel their judgment, their pity, their smug satisfaction that I had been put in my place. Diane came up to me and said, "Steph, I'm so glad you came. I know this must be hard for you, but I hope you can be happy for Jessica." I just smiled and said, "Oh, I'm very happy." She didn't know what to do with that, so she just walked away. And then the speeches started. My dad stood up first. He clinked his glass, and everyone went quiet. He started talking about Grandma Evelyn, about her legacy, about how proud she would be to see Jessica taking over her properties. He talked about responsibility and family and trust. Every word out of his mouth was a lie. Every single word. And then Jessica stood up. She was glowing, absolutely glowing with pride and arrogance and entitlement. She looked around the room at all her friends and family and said, "I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. These past few weeks have been so overwhelming, but I'm so excited to step into this new role. Grandma Evelyn trusted me with her legacy, and I promise I will honor that trust. I will manage these properties with care and integrity." Integrity. She actually said integrity. And then she looked directly at me. And she said, "I know this might be hard for some people to accept. I know some people might feel like they deserve a piece of this, but Grandma made her choice. And that choice was me. So, Steph, I'm sorry, but you're getting absolutely nothing." The room erupted in applause. People were cheering. They were hugging Jessica. They were congratulating her. And I just sat there, watching them celebrate a lie. And then I stood up. I didn't say anything at first. I just walked to the center of the room, right next to where Jessica was standing, and I placed my document case on the table. Everyone went quiet. They were all staring at me, waiting to see what I was going to do, waiting to see if I was going to make a scene, waiting to see if I was going to cry or beg or scream. I didn't do any of those things. I opened the case slowly, deliberately, and one by one, I pulled out the deeds. 8 deeds. Each one stamped. Each one notarized. Each one with Grandma Evelyn's signature on it. And each one listing me, Steph Hartman, as the sole owner. I laid them out on the table in a perfect row. And then I looked at Jessica and said, "These are the actual deeds to Grandma's properties. Signed 3 years ago. Notarized, legal, binding. Every single one of these houses belongs to me. Not you." "Me?" Jessica's face went from glowing to pale in about 2 seconds. She grabbed one of the deeds and stared at it like it couldn't possibly be real. And then she started screaming, "No, this is fake! This is fake! You forged these! You're a liar!" My dad grabbed the papers. His hands were shaking. He looked at the signatures. He looked at the notary stamps. He looked at the dates. And I watched the realization hit him like a freight train. His mother had cut him out. She had given everything to me. The daughter he forgot. The daughter he abandoned. The daughter he let his wife and stepdaughter destroy. He whispered, "Steph, when did she—" I said, "3 years ago, Dad." She called me. She showed me the books. She showed me how much money Diane and Jessica had stolen. And she made a choice. She chose the granddaughter who actually loved her, not the son who let his new wife rob her blind. Diane started yelling. She said I was lying. She said I had manipulated an old woman. She said this wouldn't hold up in court. But her voice was panicked, desperate. She knew I was telling the truth. She knew I had won. And then my dad's brother, my Uncle Ray, stood up. Everyone went quiet. Uncle Ray had been sitting in the corner the whole time, not saying a word. And he said, "I drove Mom to the notary. I witnessed the whole thing. Every word Steph is saying is true. Mom knew exactly what she was doing. She knew Diane and Jessica were stealing from her. And she made damn sure they would never get another cent." The room exploded. People were yelling. Jessica was crying. Diane was screaming at my dad. My dad just sat there staring at the deeds like his entire world had collapsed, which I guess it had. I calmly packed the deeds back into my case. I looked at Jessica and said, "You were right about one thing. You're getting absolutely nothing." And then I walked out. The fallout was nuclear. Within a month, the IRS started investigating Jessica. Turns out, she had been claiming fraudulent deductions on her taxes for years, using fake invoices from Grandma's properties. Bank accounts frozen, assets seized. Her fiancé, who had been so excited to marry into money, broke off the engagement and disappeared. Diane lost everything too. Her reputation, her social standing, her access to money she never earned in the first place. She tried to sue me. It went nowhere. The deeds were ironclad. Her lawyer told her she didn't have a case. She dropped it. My dad called me a few times. He tried to apologize. He said he didn't know how bad things had gotten. He said he wished he had protected me better. He said he was sorry. I didn't answer. I didn't call him back. Because sorry doesn't fix 15 years of neglect. Sorry doesn't undo the damage. Sorry doesn't give me back my childhood. They all begged me for forgiveness eventually. They all said I was being cruel. They all said I should show mercy. They said family is supposed to forgive. But they forgot one important thing. They forgot that I learned from the best. I learned from Grandma Evelyn. And Grandma Evelyn taught me that loyalty is a two-way street. You can't demand forgiveness from someone you never loved in the first place. So I walked away. I walked away from all of them. And I didn't look back. I went back to Atlanta. I managed Grandma's properties from a distance, hiring a reputable property management company to handle the day-to-day operations. The tenants finally got honest management. Repairs were done properly. Rent was fair. The income was stable, reliable, clean. I bought myself a small house. Nothing fancy. Just a quiet little place with a garden and a porch where I can sit in the mornings with my coffee and watch the sun come up. I keep Grandma Evelyn's folder in a fireproof safe in my closet. Sometimes I take it out and look at those deeds. Not because I need to prove anything to myself, but because they remind me that I mattered to someone. They remind me that I was loved. Grandma saved me long before I knew I needed saving. She saw me when no one else did. She valued me when no one else would. She gave me power when everyone else tried to take it away. And you know what the craziest part is? I'm not angry anymore. I was, for a long time. I was so angry I could barely breathe sometimes. But now I'm just free. Free from their expectations. Free from their judgment. Free from their cruelty. I built a life on my own terms. I don't need their approval. I don't need their love. I don't need anything from them. Because I learned the most important lesson of my life that day in Grandma's kitchen when she handed me those deeds. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. DNA doesn't equal family. Sometimes the loudest people have the weakest claims. Sometimes the people who demand the most give the least. And sometimes the person everyone forgets is the one who ends up winning. Paper beats promises every single time. Grandma knew that. And now, so do I. If you've ever had to smile through family betrayal, if you've ever been the forgotten one, if you've ever been told you don't matter and had to fight like hell to prove them wrong, tell me where you're watching from tonight. Drop a comment, hit that like button, subscribe. Because this story is for everyone who was ever made to feel invisible. You're not invisible, you matter. And one day, when the people who underestimated you realize what they've lost, you'll be long gone, living the life they said you'd never have. That's my story. That's how I went from the forgotten stepdaughter to the woman who owned everything they thought was theirs. And I'd do it all over again.